Lucy, very glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Ralf.
Introducing Lucy is super interesting, and I learned things about you which I didn't know before, right? Although we met privately. So, you come from the same town as Chancellor Merz, which is in Brilon, in the German area of the Sauerland. After school, you quickly went away from Germany. You studied first in London, at the London School of Economics, International Relations. You kept on doing this stuff, and you went afterwards to Washington for the School of International, what was it?
School of Advanced International Studies.
Which is part of Johns Hopkins University,
That's
right?
it, yeah.
And there was Washington and Bologna in Italy. Afterwards, you did your doctorate in Frankfurt. Then you worked for the World Bank. And then you went into consulting. So my first question is, why international relations? Why all these international stages? Was it interest right from the beginning? What was driving you?
I wanted to do something good for the world, do something where I do something lasting for society, change the world a little bit. Sounds naive, was naive, but still this was my drive. And that's why I went to London and studied international relations because I thought, you know, it's a fun city, it's a great, cool city, it's a good program. You learn about how international relations works, how states work together, and how the whole game functions. And maybe I can learn somehow how I can change the world. And pretty much in the beginning, I knew I want to work for the World Bank, and because I thought, you know, they are doing something good, and I know they are doing something good as a multilateral organization, obviously. And this is how I picked my stations. No, so I went to LSE, and then I said I go to the place where most of the graduates, 80%, then join the World Bank because it's just around the corner in Washington D.C. And that's what I did. What I didn't know at the time, I focused then on conflict management in sub-Saharan Africa, civil wars, because I thought it was super interesting to learn how conflicts are managed. I learned a lot also about education for kids. It's very much the same conflict patterns. Doesn't matter whether they are between people in families, kids, or in the end also states, wars, rebels, whatever it is. And then I joined the World Bank and wanted to do something good. And then I learned it's not always that easy. Yeah. But that was why I chose those stations and went abroad.
Can you share the not so easy part?
Yeah, I joined the World Bank in the Department for Sudan, specifically Darfur. It was at the height of the 2006, height of the conflict in southern Sudan. As a trained conflict manager, I had spent some time in Uganda and other parts in Africa. And then there was money left, and we needed to get the pitch, win the pitch for the money. It was about 2 billion euros that were supposed to be invested in infrastructure projects. And I was asked to write an assessment saying it's good to get this money for Darfur because we want to invest it there in order to get the money, you know, and the conflict is basically coming to a close, so it makes sense now to invest into infrastructure and build streets and everything. And I went to my boss at the time, I was very young, still, no, mid-20s, and I said, "Dear Jack, this is a bit surreal because, you know, I just come from university and all I learned is Darfur is not at a post-conflict stage, but it's actually up and rising, the conflict. We haven't reached the height yet. So if we now invest into infrastructure projects in Darfur, you know, we're actually going to build streets so that the rebels come to the rural places even faster to take the kids and make them to kids, soldiers and sex slaves, no?" And he said, "Yes, Lucy, this is correct. But the thing is, if we don't pitch for it now, we're not going to get it next year." And I said, you know, I'm fine with something where we actually do not do harm and waste money. I could consider this, but actually doing harm and wasting money is not just wasting money, but it's actually killing people. So for me, it was very clear that I have to leave this job and said, here I'm not doing good. So that's why I had to leave.
I find that very impressive because you stood for your values, right? And say, if this is not something I can consider for myself, I rather change instead of giving in.
change it or leave it. No, I mean, I couldn't change it at the time with 24 years, so I left it.
But then you turned to the dark side, to consulting. So what brought you to consulting?
Well, first of all, it was only the quasi dark side because I joined Booz Allen Hamilton, also known as the cuddling consulting.
I was joking with the dark side, right? But I think it really was a complete turn, right, from World Bank to consulting. What?
I had a fantastic professor, Esther Brimmer, in DC, and I asked her, she was my professor surreally for human rights. And I said, my whole dream of doing something good and working for the World Bank just collapsed. I'm jobless. What do I do with my life? I don't know what to do. And she said, you should join consulting because it never hurts. You're going to learn. You do this for 2 years, and then you have a steep learning curve, and you can then choose what is best for your life. That's what I did, and I stayed for 7 years instead of 2 years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that dark.
Yeah. Then you joined Allianz. What made you joining Allianz then?
I had spent 7 years in consulting, and don't get me wrong, I really loved the job. I learned something new. Did everything as it is in consulting, from Swarovski over telecommunications to automobile, but then focused more and more on health insurances. And I thought, this is really cool because in health insurance you can actually do something good. It's very different to the World Bank because you do help people and pretty existentially also. And I really liked it. And also after 7 years, I came to a point where I said, it's when you're a consultant, you always consult, but you're not responsible yourself. No, you tell these people, these clients, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And sometimes they listen to you and sometimes they don't. And that's very frustrating. And I wanted to be in a position where I can actually decide and I think you talked about this today a lot, work with people. So I'm a big fan of leadership models. In consulting, you never have this real leadership responsibility. No, you have here and now teams, but they're very fluctuative. You can't really work with them so much. They go and come and go. And then Allianz offered me a job. They contacted me and said, would you like to join us and work with us in the health insurance? You're going to have 45 people. And I was like, 45 people. Like, how do I do this? And and I thought this is a big challenge. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. We come back to leadership and some of your views on leadership, but maybe let's make a quick turn to the Allianz Group. If you would describe the Allianz Group in short, so if you could kind of portray it of what it really is, because it belongs to the largest insurance group in the world.
Mm-hmm. Allianz is a company that is very much based on, and this is not just true for Allianz, but insurance in general, solidarity principle. Because it ensures that you are secure. This is why we have a claim that is called We Secure Your Future. And it secures all these risks that you can't handle as an individual. And this it's independent of whether you are talking about health insurance or legal protection, accident, anything. No?
Well, actually, I asked AI on what AI thinks of the image of insurance companies. It was super interesting. To take a comparison, insurance companies, at least from what AI says, feel a little bit like elephants. They have a big memory. Right? They want to know everything, memorize everything. They're a little bit stubborn when it comes to claims and compensation, but everybody feels they are essential. In your view, what is it really? I think today insurance companies, from what you described, Allianz is, but what is an insurance company today in your view?
I think it's interesting, and of course, this is again the beauty about AI. No, it gives you a very, very honest and true perception.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I think so. We don't want to believe so, but most of the time it is, no? Because it's this is why we have all these problems with discrimination and biases in AI, because it is what the mass of people thinks, and this is what the mass of people thinks, and it's not so wrong. It is like an elephant, an insurance company, and it's good so because we need data. No, data is the most important currency in the future, also for us. and it's good. But the problem is the emotional value of insurance companies clearly has not reached the masses of the people.
Yeah. You mentioned that it's the so-called happy path.
So this is actually our strategy, and this is this is how we work and how we think about it. I said I want to transform this idea of how insurance is being seen, rightly so, into a real fair insurance idea. We call it the happy path. Here the IT people know the term because it comes from IT. The happy path is when something goes right. All stakeholders involved say this was the optimal way how it went. And it doesn't mean that we just pay. No, like this would also be a very short-sighted idea to just say, if there's a claim, we just pay all the money. No, of course we have to assess, we have to make sure there's no fraud, we have to see whether there's subrogation potential, So you get the idea. It's not such an easy process normally. So the happy path is when you say everyone says it all went well, what is the first equation that a customer needs? Super fast processes and transparency. No? You want to know what happens to your car after your accident. You want to know that if your company goes bankrupt, what happens as next steps. You want to know this. So we brought together the newest digital processes. We said we need all data we have on our processes. So we have a big process intelligence in place. And we also have to change the thinking. This is what we call systems thinking. Really go through all our processes and say, we don't want to do non-valuable work. So we turn it around. And that's the happy path. Very easy.
Okay. It sounds super simple.
Yeah, it's very simple.
So it has two drivers, technology, and the other one is change mindset, right?
Hard.
Or hard. Okay, hard. Shall we maybe look at the processes first, because of the second part we're looking at, because I understood that you see a super big potential for savings, also in how you run processes at Allianz, but for the benefit of the customer. But what I learned now is that really insurance companies are technology companies, because you can't solve that without technology.
Yeah.
And so maybe two aspects. How do you handle all the technology parts to be really fueled with the latest technology? And the second part is the leadership part of it. So how do you bring it into the organization? Because this was one of the subject matters of today, is that I think having the technology is one piece. Making it work requires a mindset change.
Yeah.
How have you achieved that?
Yeah, this is a very complex question, Ralf. Okay. But let me try to answer it easily. Yeah. I think you don't need the newest technology. Okay. And now you're going to be surprised. You will all say, well.
Now I have the IT colleagues to listen, please.
The thing is, of course, you have to know what is happening in the market. I had a long conversation with Julie Sweet, the CEO of Accenture. And she said, Lucy, you don't need another use case, because all these use cases that come now with newest technology, super cool. They're not going to bring you anything in productivity, efficiency, or whatever you name it. Nothing. Because what would be good if you just take something and scale it? And this is the difficult part. How do you actually take something that is cool and, of course, ideally the newest technology, and how do you bring it to the organization, make them use it? Not just in a use case where you have one little piece that is being used there, but in the broad part. We've always been super good in Allianz developing theoretically perfect processes. But what happens? You put 100% in the front end, and then it drips off. You have, like we call it, we always talk about this idea of an Autobahn, a highway, and then you have exits. So then you have the first exit, whereas, normally if you have we call it first notification of loss. So if people notify us of a claim digitally with our online data thingy, perfect. Then goes on to the Autobahn. But they can also call, because we also still have a phone number. So people that call, there's claims agents answering the machine, and they don't go on the Autobahn. They put it directly into our old IT system, because they think it's going to work better. And I can put more information than I would normally get when they put the online notification. So then they're off. And they're never going to get on again. So in the moment of start, we already don't have the 100% on the Autobahn, but only 70%. Yeah? Only 70, it's 30% off here. Then the next one comes, we say, there might be fraud. So we put it to our claims handlers. Boom, another 10% out. Then, in the end, we have 4% going through the ideal process, the happy path. That's shit. Yeah, then I don't need the happy path. 4% is just not sufficient, obviously. I want 100% or maybe 98%, but not less than 98%. But we only have 4%, big problem. So you have to identify, for this you need task mining and process mining. You need to see why do they drip off, at what point. And then there's two ways. You stop them from dripping out, or you bring them back on the highway. This can also be. No? So the claims handler has to be forced to actually work in the other system. But you can't leave them the optionality to do it differently, because then it doesn't work. And this is about the leadership and transformational mindset. And then you have to dare. So we have some people, I know you have We Dare. Yeah? This is why he showed it to me earlier. And I said, We Care is super important, obviously, but We Dare is much harder even, because the We Care thing, you can enthusiate people. No, you are all top leaders. So I'm sure you can make people to care, because this is what people do. They care. Yeah? They care for their job, they care for their kids, they care for something. But the daring part is really difficult, because daring means you can also make mistakes and you can be punished for mistakes. And then they will come to you and say, but I'm not going to do something that is against the rules. And we have so many rules. We are like, you are a German company, so I'm sure you have 1,000 rules. And so now we ask our people to dare. Yeah, do something that is against the rules that we've given you. So first people came to my office and said, but Lucy, then I'm actually doing something against my employee contract. I'm like, ooh, that's true. No, so it's a combination of, you have to take out the rules and you have to say it's guidelines, so that these nitty-gritty people also feel comfort. And then you have to make them actually dare and experience that they are being celebrated for daring, even if it's a mistake. Yeah, you have to say, this is good because, we are doing things different. Because if you ask them, is it correct that you wait 3 years until you pay them the money? They will all say, no, it's shit. And you ask them, do you think that anyone understands this letter that we are sending to people in this funny law insurance words? Do you think anyone in the world is going to understand what we want from? No. I'm like, so why do we send it? Because that's a letter. No, because that's a standard letter. I'm like, okay, so why don't we change this? So you need to really establish a culture where it's okay to dare and do things different. But that's super difficult. It's really the super elite part of leadership.
Okay, I come back on leadership. But first, when we opened the Finance and Insurance Summit of Bitkom last year in Berlin, you mentioned the fraud case. And I found that super amazing, because insurance companies, like banks or other, let's say, critical companies, are attacked also more and more through AI. And how do you respond through the attacks of artificial cases? How do you do that? Because by humankind, I think it's almost impossible to distinguish, right?
It's super difficult, and it's a race.
Yeah.
Because criminal organizations become better and we become better. So you always have to be one step ahead, ideally, and it's enormously difficult to stay ahead. So the biggest parts for us, it's not the rocket science part. The biggest risk is the mass risk of cyber attacks. No, like the very, 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 very easy, simple stuff. They are bombarding you and us and everyone. Yeah? So we need to make sure that we have this in place, and then we can also take care of the big ones. But ideally, we do this together then. So this is the one part. The other part is you really need to invest, no? Because for us, it's a huge advantage now that we have fraud detection with AI. So I think I told you this case, or I told the case probably on stage. You remember who of you knows soccer, no? Football. Big city here in Munich with Bayern München. And you also probably know Jürgen Klopp. So in 2013, there was a Champions League final, BVB, two German teams against each other. BVB, the Dortmund team, that's the yellow team in Germany, against Bayern München. Big game. And he was the trainer of BVB at the time. Yeah? And then they lost. So he got really angry and he smashed his glasses on the floor. So the picture of his glasses is the one picture that has been handed in our liability insurance the most times ever. Since 2013. So the first years we couldn't detect. We would pay a lot of glasses that looked identical because claims handlers, if every 200th picture they looked at is the same picture, they will not remember that 200 pictures before they saw these glasses before. Yeah? Of course, an AI can identify this. Yeah? So at some point we realized, okay, this is the most handed in picture ever. And then they became even better. So this is the latest development. It's still being handed in and we can still detect it, but now they changed that. It's not grass anymore on the floor because obviously with AI you can, adapt the picture. And it's really difficult because you can also now, there's new tools on AI, you can change bills. This is going to be relevant for you as well. No, you can change bills and just the euro numbers you can change without realizing that the whole thing changed. We had a long time, we were very good in detecting wrong bills with signatures, wet signatures, because we could see that signatures are when they are exactly the same, they are copied, no, obviously, so that we could make the identification that it's exactly the same, so not possible. Now, of course, with e-sign, it's not the case anymore, no, because of course they're identical. So you really always have to be one step ahead. We invest a lot of resources in it. We have about a 4% quota of fraud cases, but it's most of the time the expensive ones. And we are trying to stay ahead always, and it's helping. But every month we see there's new developments, so it's a race. It's always a race.
Okay, so if I paraphrase of what I learned so far from insurance companies, they're still elephants. You confirmed that?
Yes.
but with good intent.
Good intent. Most of them.
Because what you brought in is like focusing on the customer and solving issues also through technology. But I think the most important thing, what stuck out for me is it should be coherent processes for scale and not finding exit routes too many times.
Yeah.
And what you also said is technology at the edge is not always the key, but making it work thoroughly. Well, I think you talked before about your board. I think we have to recognize in your early 40s, you are in the board of Allianz Germany, right?
Yep.
So you have a quite established position already, and you're also quoted for leadership. And what I found is that good leadership means to support others to be successful. Can you elaborate briefly on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a team and you don't have a team that is stellar, then it's always you who have to go into the problems. And I think good leadership means that you build a team that is stellar. Each and every individual must be excellent in your team. And you shouldn't make any compromises on your team. But don't recruit only for excellence, but also for potential, no? Because you want to build teams and develop them further. So, so this is your task as leaders. Really build an excellent team. Make sure you have the best people. And this is, again, going back to we care and we dare, because it's one of the most difficult things to do, changing teams. And this is probably one of the keys why I was pretty successful for my life now. I always built my teams pretty much new when I took a new position. Because you need to, first of all, trust all your team members. You have to make sure they are excellent people and they work in a way that you want them to do, no? Like that they actually do something that is with spirit and doing it. And it is painful to do that, but it pays off. And it takes half a year, sometimes depending on the organization. Allianz, sometimes it also takes a little longer. But you have to make sure that you change the people in your team and make it work. It must be the best people. And it's a lot about daring, because, sometimes it's much easier not to have the difficult conversation, not to change people to positions, take them out if they don't deliver. But it is important because it's the only way you can be really successful with a team.
Yeah. building on what you say, to actually attribute to leaders a dedicated kind of responsibility. So what you say is, in our fast-moving time, it requires flexibility and adaptability, in particular from leaders. There must be leading examples. So in what way do you practice that?
Adaptability and flexibility.
Yeah, being a leading, let's say, example.
Yeah, I'm just how I am. I'm very authentic. So I think this is one of the most important points. You have to really be yourself. You can't fake it. No? Like if you fake someone, then it doesn't work. And it's okay. Like everyone is different. Everyone can be how they are. But you have to be able to show that it is possible to change opinions, to adapt, to work hard. No, this is also important to show this to the teams. But then listen, and this is super important, and then act upon it. To go sit with the people. This is what you said. You have to be with the people. How is it in your 4 rules? One was
4-sentence rule.
No, yeah, there was also one principle: listen to the people, sit with the people.
Yeah.
And this point, like I spent a lot of time very regularly sitting next to claims handlers all over the world. Yeah? I sit next to them and look how they work. And if you don't do this, it is impossible to change and to be flexible and adaptable. You have to see what is the reality of what people are doing. Because in top management, we often talk about things, how we presume things are. So how often have you called your hotline of the help desk? How often, because you have all assistants, so they do it. So how often do you actually experience the processes yourself? It's enormously important. Sit next to the people, see how they're working, how it is difficult when you have to switch between different IT systems, how it takes time to answer the phone, how it is when you've been sitting there 6 hours answering a phone and then there's someone who's angry and screaming at you in the telephone. Experiences are the most important point for leaders in order to be able to be flexible, adaptable, and change things really and make the transformation work.
So maybe one very last question to you, because really time was flying away, practically speaking. What do you do for yourself to keep your energy level up, or in particular, when it's down, how do you get up again?
I have my family, and they give me the most energy. And now this is, I do some other stuff, obviously, yeah. But I think this balance, and it's terrible balance, work-life balance, and all this. I hate these.
Work-life integration.
It's all wrong. I think as concepts, it's this bringing you down what is important in life. I think this is what it is. And if I'm really upset in work, I feel like I go home and then I take care of puberty topics and problems and soccer questions and where's the next ballet thing and what is the present for this one and that one, and here, Mama, I have problems here and there and there and there, and we cuddle and it's all nice and we are a family and play Lego. So we are big Lego fans, and so that's what we do. We build big Lego houses. And sometimes, you also have this in your private life, you get frustrated at times and kids don't develop like you want them to. They have their own head. And then it's also nice to get energy out of the job, Like it's a giving and taking from both sides. And I think this symbiosis really is what keeps me going. And then have people around me. And luckily, this is in my family the case. But and I take care that it's the case in my work environment as well. Have energy givers around you that have a joke, that are caring, that are daring, and make the day a little nicer.
Lucy, it was a great pleasure talking to you. Give a big hand to Lucy.
Thank you.